What's going on, everyone? The Memphis Grizzlies is a very good, young, talented, bright future team. I mean, seriously, this team has a lot of hope, a lot of promise, and I really do think is going to be a force for some time. But the Memphis Grizzlies really need to humble themselves. They talk a lot for a team that really hasn't done anything. Right? I mean, this team is still relatively young, relatively fresh. This team, I do think, will likely improve each year in and year out. This team kind of reminds me of like OKC back in the day, where, it was like every year they got better till they made it to the NBA Finals. And, you thought like, okay, next year is the year that they're going to end up winning it. And then they end up letting James Harden go. Hopefully that isn't the case with the Memphis Grizzlies. Hopefully the Memphis Grizzlies keep this team intact. Because, I mean, Triple J, Jaren Jackson is incredible. Just an amazing defensive shot blocker, big. Desmond Baines is slowly evolving into like the second coming of Klay Thompson in many ways. Ja Morant reminds me so much of a young Derrick Rose, right? Like, this team is a lot of fun, a lot of exciting. Dillon Brooks is kind of like your tough glue guy. But the problem is that they act very young, right? Like, this is a team that acts their age almost, and that's not good, right? They really need that veteran presence, that veteran leader that can kind of keep these guys in check. Because you see Dillon Brooks especially. This guy just cannot keep his mouth shut. And it's like, what have you done? What are you doing? Like, yes, you're a solid player. You're probably going to have him be a fixture in this league for some time. But he's over here calling Shannon Sharp a pedestrian and all this stuff and just running his mouth and talking all this smack. And it's like, I love a good trash talk, right? I love a good, some of the greatest players of all time had that good trash talk. There's nothing like a good trash talk. But there's like competitive, like, you can't stop me trash talk. And then there's just making yourself look foolish, right? And that's exactly what Dillon Brooks is doing. And he does it regularly. And he's got this like fake toughness to him where he's just acting like he's not Ron Artest out there, right? Like, this guy, like, nobody's afraid of him. Like, he's a solid player, he's a solid contributor, but he's not a star. He's not a star in the making. Like, he's a good defensive guy. He's a good role guy. He's a guy that can really make an impact on this Memphis Grizzly team, but he's not irreplaceable. He's not Ja Morant. He's not even Desmond Baines or anybody. Like, he's that other guy, right? And that's very likely what he's going to be. He's going to be like a Tony Allen type guy, probably most of his career. Now, the thing is that Memphis, they're talking like they're the Golden State Warriors, and they're not, right? I mean, Memphis as a franchise has been to one Western Conference Finals, right? And that was the grit and grind Grizzlies. That grit and grind Grizzlies, yeah, that was a team that had some toughness. That was a team you do not want to mess around with. Like, teams don't take these guys serious. I mean, you see Jordan Clarkson squaring up like he's about to do, like, they ain't afraid of these guys. And it's humbling yourself enough to make an impact, right? Like, if these guys have all the talent in the world. They really do. And this is a team that I think can really be a fixture in this league for the next several years at least. And I wouldn't be surprised if they made a push for an NBA Finals or won a title. I do personally, and this is just me personally, I do have questions about Ja Morant being the best player on a championship contender. But he's still very young. He still has a lot of room to grow. But that was a real question, even with young Derrick Rose, right? Like, Derrick Rose, he's leading Chicago not year in and year out. One of the best records, one of the best teams. But it was just always like, is he the guy that's good enough to lead a team, right? And he was never able to get over that hump. And then obviously injuries and stuff happened, which is just unfortunate. And so it kind of became this what if. Like, was he ever able, or would have he ever been able to kind of take that team over the top to win a championship? Ja reminds me of him so much. That just reckless abandonment, getting to the paint. Ja, I think, though, needs to learn how to just balance himself out, right? I think he's a guy that needs to learn how to if once he develops that shot better, which he will. Again, he's 23 years old. Like, what I'm saying is not a knock on Ja Morant. Believe me, and comparing him to a young Derrick Rose, if you remember a young Derrick Rose, then you know how good I'm comparing Ja Morant to. I mean, you're talking about a league MVP, the youngest MVP ever, right? Like, Ja is an incredible player, an incredible talent. I really do believe that he can get to where you need to be, right? But a great example is like De'Aaron Fox. And I actually think Ja Morant's, you can make an argument, is better than De'Aaron Fox. But De'Aaron Fox for the last several years really was like, okay, like he's not the guy that's leading the team. He's not your leader, right? But he's really evolved into that, especially this season. He's, he's top 5 in points in the fourth quarter, closeouts. Is leading the league in field goal percentages at that time. Like he's playing the defense. He's making the plays. He's the go-to guy. He's the voice in the locker room. De'Aaron Fox really evolved into that leader and really changed my tune about him. For a long time, I was like, yeah, he's not. I don't think he's it. Like I think he's a great second, maybe third option, but I don't think he's that. That's kind of how I feel about Ja right now. I think Ja is absolutely incredible. I think I wouldn't be shocked if they win a championship, and I hope he proves me wrong. But I think this current adaptation of Ja Morant is not going to be enough from a leader standpoint and from just a player standpoint to win a championship. Now, I think he needs to refine his game. And he'll get there. Again, he's 23 years old. He has a long way to go. In 10 years, he'll still be in his prime. But he's just very reckless. He's 100 miles a minute. And at times you just see like he doesn't really have control. And that's something that I think he'll learn. Once he develops that shot, if he can get that mid-range going more, that three-point shooter, I think once he can kind of expand, he gets his grown man body, he gets his, that just leadership that you get with becoming a vet in this league. I really think that's when we'll see this team take the next step. And it could be 2 years from now, it could be 5 years from now. I don't know. But I think there's things that he needs to do. And as a team, he needs to be able to tell his guys, knock it off. He is the star of the team. He is the face of the team. Dillon Brooks running his mouth, acting a fool. I understand you want to be there for your guy. You don't have to say it publicly. But, in the locker room, you should be like, dude, like, what have we done? You running all this, you talking about all this, you doing this, that, and the other. Like, what have we done? And you hear, the problem is you hear Ja saying the same stuff in interviews and stuff that like, it's the team, it's the culture, it's what they're doing, right? They believe they're the best team in the league, and there's nothing wrong with that unwavering confidence, but there's got to be some humbleness in that. Even Michael Jordan, who many believe is the greatest player of all time, even he's like, I don't want that title. Like he believed he could kill you night in and night out. But he was very, interviews, watch interviews, watch, conversations he had. There's tons of it on tape and all kinds of. He's a killer on that court. But when you hear him talking to the media or you talking to other people and stuff, like he's very humble. Like, yeah, he's, we play one-on-one. I'm killing that guy. But, he wasn't, I'm this, I'm that, that's for them to decide. Kobe would say the same stuff. But when Kobe was young, Go listen to Kobe when he was like 18, 19. He was talking like these guys. He was, oh yeah, man, I'm this, I'm that. And then over time he learned, okay, I gotta humble myself a little bit. I gotta, let my game do the talking. Kobe talked smack. He loved to talk smack, right? He was a great, smack talker. But he did that in the court. He did that amongst the players. When you saw it, right? Job's not finished. They ask him, how do you feel we did? His players are celebrating. What is Kobe doing? Like, knock that off. That's not, what have we done? What have we won? Nothing. Relax. Sit down. Like that, they need somebody like that. This is a team that has so much promise. This is a team that really could make some noise and be a fixture in this league for quite some time. A team that legitimately could win a championship. I just think that they have, their biggest obstacle is themselves. I think their ego is too big. I think Ja isn't a fully developed player yet, which isn't bad. He's an incredible talent. Imagine how much better he'll be once he refines his game. Like, come on, that guy's gonna be terrifying, right? Like, I would choose Ja over like most, like outside of like 5-6 players. I'd probably choose him over most of the guys in the league, right? Like, I love Ja. I think he's great, but this team really needs to take a step back. This team really needs to learn to just play the game of basketball. What have you done? Nothing. You haven't achieved or accomplished nothing. Zero. So until you do that, be cautious. No, you don't hear Steph and Clay. I mean, Dre talks a lot, right? But that's just who he is, right? But you don't hear Steph like, yeah, this, that, and the other. Clay is, yeah, this, that, and the other. Yeah, we this. They've done something. They've earned the right to say that. But you know why they don't? Because they don't have to. They know. Look, like, are you serious? Look what we just did, right? Like Draymond will run his mouth, but outside of that, most of that Warriors team is humble. They humbled themselves, and that's why they were able to build a dynasty. And that's what the Grizzlies need to do. Because what's going to happen is this team's going to end up getting blown up, and they're never going to win anything, because you're going to have you have all these kids that have this big ego, they can't check it, and they're all going to think that they're better than what they are. And they're going to go elsewhere, and Memphis is going to fall apart. That's just the reality. We've seen it. We've seen this story so many times. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on you. Those are my thoughts and opinions. Love to hear yours. Let me know down in the comment section below. What do you think? Do you agree with me? Yeah, look, Memphis, the true, they need to humble themselves. They need to learn how to let your game do the talking. You're on an 11-game win streak. That's great. You talking all that smack, and then what ends up happening? You end up laying a dud and you lose, and a game that you should not have lost, right? Like all of those things, Again, however you feel, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comment section below.